All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the NFL Quick Talk podcast. If you have not already, subscribe to the channel. It's the best way, it's the most efficient way to support the podcast, all with that one click of the big red subscribe button. And you're there, and you've done all you've needed to do. Let's get into today's video, which is a 3-round NFL mock draft, my final one before the actual NFL draft, which will all be covered here on the channel. Another reason for you to subscribe. Yeah, let's get right into it here. A couple notes first. I have made trades up and down all 3 rounds, but to fit that in a 15-minute video, it's not gonna be 15 minutes, let me tell you. So if y'all want another video on the side with the trades, just let me know. I'll do the best I can. But for now, let's just dive right in here to this NFL mock draft. Hopefully, y'all will follow along here with the first overall pick. The Bears take Caleb Williams, obviously. Now, with their second round one pick, they take tight end Brock Bowers, elite receiving threat who's not scared to get his hands dirty on the offensive line as well. I think he'll be better than Travis Kelce, especially with a guy like Caleb Williams throwing him the ball. Then in round 3, they take edge Chris Braswell, a guy not as refined as Dallas Turner, his running mate at Bama, but definitely a guy that can learn and be mentored by a guy like Montez Sweat. The Commanders can't go wrong with this next pick, and they take Jaden Daniels. In my opinion, he can run the Commanders' offense better. Then they take Kingsley Suamataia and Tyler Nubin in the second round for Kingsley Suamataia, elite size. They just have to be able to really coach him up, And then Tyler Nubin, a guy that will really help out their secondary at an obvious weakness in safety. Then in round 3, they have 3 picks. They take edge Brandon Dorless. He needs some development as well, but he'll be able to slide in there eventually. Then corner DJ James out of Auburn, a guy I absolutely love. And then they take a running back here with the last pick in the 3rd round in Braylon Allen, a guy who's very Derrick Henry-esque, a guy that can really get those short yardage situations with his size, and then he has the speed to really make him a complete back. Patriots here, they could trade down in the 1st round, but I think Drake May is too good of a prospect to pass up on, so they take him in the 1st round. 2nd round, Ladd McConkey, criminally underrated, and he's a QB helper. He's not flashy, he's not the fastest, but he will be able to do whatever you need him to do. And then in the 3rd round, Ben Sinnott, the tight end out of K-State, needs a little bit of development, but I think he will be a pretty darn good tight end. Now, the Giants trade up 2 spots here, which is why they don't have their 3rd round pick, because it was traded to the Cardinals to trade up to this pick number 4 spot. So they take wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., an absolute stud, a generational player, and I think he'll be a Pro Bowler in his 1st year, and then not too far down the future, he'll be a multiple-time All-Pro. In my opinion, he's that good. In round 2, they take corner Max Melton, a do-it-all guy. He can play inside, he can play outside, he can play zone, he can cover one-on-one, and he was built tough at Rutgers, and I think he'll be phenomenal. Now, here is where I think the Vikings pounce. They trade up with the Chargers. They trade away their 11th overall pick and the extra 1st rounder that they have, and their 3rd rounder that they have for this number 5 overall pick. So it is their only draft pick in rounds 1 through 3, and they take JJ McCarthy here. They like him too much. I don't know if necessarily it's the right decision, but it is the decision I think they will make. Now here we go with the Cardinals, who have 7 picks in the between rounds 1 and 3. They take Malik Nabers, not as good as Marvin Harrison Jr., but he's an absolute stud as well, who will also become a Pro Bowler, and they need a wide receiver for Kyler Murray. And with their 2nd pick in the 1st round, they take a guy that can play left guard, right guard, and center in Graham Barton. They need that flexibility on the offensive line. Then with their 1st pick in round 2, they take Ennis Rakestraw, the corner out of Mizzou. He's been mocked in the 1st round before. He's a great talent, a stud, great tackler out on the outside. Then they double dip at wide receiver and take Roman Wilson because he was still there in round 3 for me. Then they take edge Marshawn Kneeland out of Western Michigan, an absolute mauler. Then, because why not, they grab Peyton Wilson, the NC State linebacker, because he's an absolute stud, a great talent. He's a round 1 talent in my opinion, but injury history led him to slide in my draft here. Then they take running back Blake Corum. They need a successor for James Conner, and they get that right here. And we have Joe Alt going to the Titans in round 1 with their 7th overall pick. Really, He embodies what a Titan should look like and will be a great addition to an offensive line that was, I think, ranked the worst last year. And they'll have two elite offensive tackles in years to come with Peter Skoronski. In round two, they take corner TJ Tampa. I know that they did get L'Jarius Sneed, but they need legitimate help out there. And TJ Tampa, he's a talent, and he'll be able to learn from a guy like L'Jarius Sneed. And the Falcons here, with their 8th overall pick, draft edge Dallas Turner, very polished prospect. And that's really the position of need right now for the Falcons, most immediate. Then round two, they take wide receiver Troy Franklin. They need some help out there. Darnell Mooney really isn't a wide receiver two. He's more like a wide receiver three, punt return type of guy. So I think Troy Franklin really embodies wide receiver two for the Falcons with Drake London. Then in round three, they take corner Chris Abrams-Draine from Mizzou. The Jets here take Taliese Fuaga, the offensive tackle that can move to guard and really has been worked out as center as well. So this is really one of the most versatile pieces in this draft. That a guy that can play all 5 offensive line positions, a guy that the Jets will need here. Obviously, he's best offensive tackle, but we'll see how it goes. And then in round 3, they take wide receiver Jalen McMillan from Washington, a guy who needs some work at his craft, but I think he'll immediately be able to slide in as a slot receiver and then work his way up the depth chart. And here we are with the Chargers, who get those 2 first-round picks from Minnesota for trading back. Then they take Rome Odunze and Nate Wiggins, 2 positions of need. Definitely, they need a wide receiver here. And in fact, they double dip at wide receiver by taking a prospect I absolutely love, an absolute stud in Ricky Pearsall in the 3rd round. But here in the 2nd round, they take guard Christian Haynes from UConn, an absolute mauler, a guy that Jim Harbaugh will love. Now, the Bengals here trade up 6 spots to get Olu Fashanu, one of the best tackles in this draft by far, in my opinion. Way better than what they'd get at 18 with a guy like Amarius Mims. No offense to him, but Fashanu is just all-around better right tackle, and they need a guy to protect Joe Burrow. Then they take defensive tackle T'Vondre Sweat and wide receiver Malik Washington, who will take Tyler Boyd's place as a slot receiver. The Raiders in their 1st round take Kenyon Mitchell. Then in round 2, they trade up and land Michael Penix. And then in round 3, they take running back Will Shipley. They need a running back after losing Josh Jacobs. And now the Saints take 2 guys I am very high on that not many people are. J.C. Latham, the tackle out of Alabama, great prospect. I love him. And then the 2nd round, they take guard Cooper Beebe from K-State, a guy that I'm absolutely in love with, and the Saints really fortify their offensive line with these 2 picks. And now the Colts take Terrion Arnold. They're going to take a corner either way. I know they would love Mitchell, but Terrion Arnold is the next best thing, not that far off of Mitchell. And then in round 2, they take safety Cam Kitchens after losing safety Julian Blackman, and they didn't really have much after him anyway. And then in round 3, they take wide receiver Tez Walker. Tons of upside, but behavioral issues, got to clean those up. But the Colts need a wide receiver, so they take Tez Walker. The Seahawks address defensive tackle immediately, taking Jer'Zhan Newton, the best defensive tackle in this draft. Then in round 3, they take offensive guard Christian Mahogany, absolute mauler as well. Pretty good in pass protection as well from Boston College. Now, the Jaguars have 3 key needs, and I addressed all of them. They take offensive tackle Amarius Mims in the 1st round. Need some work to do, but he will be able to play immediately great in run blocking. In round 2, they take wide receiver Xavier Leggett, elite speed. This guy is fast, and he will be able to help out Trevor Lawrence tremendously. In the 3rd round, they take corner Josh Newton. Needs a little bit of work on his technique, but he will be able to slide in nicely as well. Now the Broncos here, who traded back, take Bo Nix. He was going to be on the board either way, so why not trade down? Then they take running back Trey Benson. He'll be able to slide in nicely. Then defensive tackle Mason Smith from Michigan. Absolute beast. Rams needed to address defensive tackle immediately since Aaron Donald retired, so they take Byron Murphy II. Great player. In the 3rd round, they take Trevin Wallace. They need a linebacker. And then they take Jatavian Sanders. They don't really have too much of a tight end room right now, and he will be able to immediately impact the team. Now I have the Bills trading up 8 spots with the Steelers here to take wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. They need a wide receiver that bad, so that is their only pick within the first 3 rounds. The Dolphins here take best available player in edge Laitu Latu, and then in their 2nd round pick, they address the defensive tackle hole with Braden Fiske, a great prospect out of Florida State. Now the Eagles here take Cooper DeJean, a safety or a corner, can play and can play inside as well. And then they take edge Odessa Isaac after losing Hassan Reddick. Then they take true corner Kamari Lassiter in the second round as well to give them a full rebuilt secondary. Cowboys draft Troy Fautanu, kind of slipped in my draft. Great prospect. Then they draft running back Jonathan Brooks out of Texas. Great running back that got injured, and he would be very much higher if he hadn't gotten injured and they need a running back. So that's who I have them taking. Now the Packers, a team who has very little holes, get a ton of picks here. They take Kool-Aid McKinstry, a corner. Love this pick. Then they take the best linebacker in the whole draft, Jarian Cooper. Flies the ball. Then they take an offensive tackle. Patrick Paul definitely needs some work, but I think he'll be an absolute stud if he gets that development. Then they take wide receiver Jamari Thrash, because why not? Then they take safety Kalen Bullock, kind of a developmental piece. Along the lines of what the Dolphins did, the Bucs take best available player, and that is again an edge, Jared Verse. Then in the second round, they take Cedric Van Pran, and then in the third round, they take a guard, Dominic Puny out of Texas, who definitely needs some work, but can be molded into a very good guard. I think trading down gives the Steelers a lot more options at places of need. They take offensive tackle Tyler Guyton. After him, it's a bit of a drop-off with the offensive tackle class. And then take center Zach Frazier in the second round. Will be a very valuable asset for the Steelers. Then they take wide receiver Malachi Corley with the pick that they acquired from the Bills. And this kid is a do-it-all kid, and they need some wide receiver depth as well. And then they take Jeremiah Trotter, linebacker, needs some work, but he will be able to play in a very good Steelers defense. And then corner Andrew Phillips, who will presumably rotate in and out of different coverages. The Lions here draft, again, best available player. Guess what? An edge in Chop Robinson. Then they get linebacker Cedric Gray. They can always use some pieces there. And then safety Bu Brady. They need some bodies out there on the that back half of the defense. Now the Ravens here take wide receiver Keon Coleman, and then why not double dip? So they take Jalen Polk, and this really solidifies their wide receiver depth for years to come. And then they take safety Javen Bullard, kind of a developmental piece that can be mentored by Kyle Hamilton. Now we have the 49ers who, frankly, need an offensive tackle, so they take Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. Very good player, but again, that drop-off that I was talking about back at the Steelers section. Then they take corner Kalen Carson. He needs some work, but he has all the intangibles. Just needs to be able to work on his craft a little bit more. Then they take the 6'7" wide receiver Johnny Wilson. Absolute stud that will be able to slide right into the Shanahan offense. And now we have the Chiefs who take wide receiver Xavier Worthy with that last pick in the first round. Then they take defensive tackle Chris Jenkins to put alongside Chris Jones. And they double dip at wide receiver and get Jermaine Burton, two guys in Worthy and Burton that I think will be excellent for the Chiefs. Now the Browns here, their only weakness on the defense is the defensive tackle. So they get a guy in the second round in Leonard Taylor III. Then they get offensive tackle Roger Rosengarten, a guy that can play behind a couple of these aging offensive tackles on the Browns, and then once they're gone in a year or two, he'll be able to step right in and play because he is a stud and he'll be able to play. Our penultimate team, the Texans, have 3 picks in these second and third rounds, so they take 2 defensive tackles because, honestly, why not? They need a lot of help there. They take Rook Ahorahora, the defensive tackle out of Clemson, very good. Then they take Michael Hall Jr. out of Ohio State, another great player. Then they take corner Renardo Green, who will be able to play on the inside and the outside of that Texans defense. And the last team, but certainly not least, the Panthers, who grab A.D. Mitchell with that second round pick, and he'll be a great complement to the newly acquired Deontay Johnson. Then they take Jackson Powers Johnson here. They need a center. They got bull rush up the middle so much last year, and they will be able to solidify that here with JPJ. And then in the third round, they take edge Braylon Trice out of Washington. So thank you guys very much for listening all the way through. Like the video if you liked it. Comment down below your thoughts down below, and I'll see you guys after the draft.